Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the Gospel of John and breaking down how the author builds this incredible case for one of the biggest claims in all of human history. Okay, so let's just jump right in. The author starts with this huge poetic statement. It's meant to echo the creation story in Genesis, which is just wow. They're claiming to have literally seen the glory of Yahweh, but in a person, a man from Nazareth named Yeshua. It's such a bold way to open, and it immediately makes you wonder, right? I mean, how do you possibly demonstrate something as big and as abstract as glory? Well, the author doesn't just ask you to take their word for it. They actually build this really structured, deliberate argument. And they do it using a series of specific events they call miraculous signs. In fact, scholars often call the first big chunk of this gospel the Book of Signs, and that's exactly what it is. It's a super carefully chosen collection of 7 specific miracles. Each one is picked to show us a different side of this glory. You got to think of it like a lawyer in a courtroom, methodically presenting one piece of evidence after another to build an airtight case for the jury. All right, let's get into the first 2 signs. Now, what's really cool is that the author actually numbers them, first and second. That's a huge clue that they want us paying close attention to the order. These first 2 acts really set the stage for everything else that's about to happen. So where does this all begin? You might expect a temple or some grand religious setting, right? But nope. The very first sign happens at a party, a wedding celebration that's about to go horribly, horribly wrong. The problems seem simple, but in that culture, it was a catastrophe. The wine has run out. Hospitality was everything back then, and running out of wine would bring this huge, lasting shame on the family. It was a social disaster in the making. And here's the part the author absolutely doesn't want us to miss. The text spells it out for us. This wasn't just about saving a party. The whole point, we're told, was that this act revealed his glory and made his disciples believe. It was a deliberate demonstration. Okay, so for the second sign, we shift gears. We go from a social crisis to a genuine life and death emergency. And this one introduces a whole new factor: distance. So a government official, a guy with some status, comes to Yeshua. He's desperate. He begs him to come heal his son, who's miles and miles away and is literally about to die. This is just a brilliant way to show that his authority isn't bound by physical location. You see the escalation? The first sign showed power over physical stuff, elements like water. But this shows power over sickness and space itself. So if the first 2 signs laid the foundation, now the author really hits the gas. The next 3 signs just escalate like crazy in their scale, in their scope, and in how they directly challenge the religious establishment. The third sign brings the focus back to just one person, but it's someone in a situation that seemed completely and utterly hopeless. I mean, this was a chronic condition that had been his whole life. So we're at the pool of Bethesda in Jerusalem. It was a place where all the sick and hurting people gathered, hoping for a miracle. And here we meet a man who hasn't been able to walk for 38 years. Think about that, 38 years. So the healing is incredible, obviously. But the real bombshell, the part that causes a huge uproar, is when he does it. It's the Sabbath, a day of rest where even carrying your sleeping mat was considered work under religious law. So by doing this, Yeshua is throwing down a gauntlet, challenging the authorities on their own turf and claiming his authority is higher than their rules. Okay, now we pull the camera way back. From healing one person after decades of suffering, we're about to see provision for thousands of people, all in a single afternoon. Yeshua is out in a remote place teaching this huge crowd. We're talking 5,000 men, not even counting women and children. It's getting late, and there is no food. No Uber Eats, no grocery store for miles. They have a serious problem. This is a picture of just wild, extravagant abundance. And for anyone who knew their scriptures, this would have sounded a lot like the stories of Yahweh providing manna in the wilderness. It's a sign of creative power that just completely obliterates the problem of scarcity. So, he has authority over elements, sickness, religious law, and scarcity. What's left? Well, the next line takes his authority to an even more fundamental level: power over the very laws of nature. The disciples are in a boat, caught in a nasty storm on the Sea of Galilee. Now remember, these are professional fishermen. This sea is their office, and they are terrified. Then, out of the darkness, in the middle of the wind and the waves, they see him. just calmly walking towards them on top of the water. And that brings us to the final two signs. This is it. This is the climax of the entire argument. The author presents these as the ultimate proofs, and they are directly, unmistakably tied to Yeshua's most profound claims about who he is. Look at this. The author is not being subtle here at all. Just before he heals a man who is born blind, a man who had spent his entire life in darkness, Yeshua says, "I am the light of the world." Then, just moments before he stands in front of a tomb and calls out his friend Lazarus, who has been dead and buried for 4 days, he says, "I am the resurrection and the life." The sign becomes the living, breathing proof of the claim. It's incredible. So after laying out this whole case, from wine to healing, to food, to nature, to light, and finally to life itself, the author rests their case. And then they come right out and tell us exactly why they wrote any of this down in the first place. And that's it. That is the thesis statement for the entire book. For the author, these 7 signs aren't just cool stories about miracles. No way. They are a curated, structured, powerful argument with one single, crystal clear purpose: to persuade you, the reader, about who Yeshua is and about the life that comes from that belief. In the end, the author presents all this evidence and then just steps back, leaving the verdict up to every single person who reads it. The question you see on the screen, well, that's the whole point of the Book of Signs, isn't it?